Welcome. Thanks for taking a few minutes to look at this very brief presentation on SATMAP, and I'm absolutely convinced in the next few minutes you're going to agree with me that 1. SATMAP is an extraordinary new and lucrative service for fresh revenues. But more importantly, it's going to change the way call centers, both inbound and outbound, do business in 2010, and we stand to profit from that. So what is SATMAP? Well, the best analogy I've heard to date is like it's eHarmony for call centers. It matches the caller within less than 1/10 of a second with the one agent on the floor that has the highest probability of forming a quick relationship and closing the deal while the caller is on the phone. In 2010, we still manage and operate call centers exactly the way we did in the 1960s when they were first introduced. And by that I mean, when a call comes into a call center today, it's routed to the first agent that becomes available, or in slow economic times, it goes to the agent that's been waiting the longest. SATMAP is bringing the call center into the 21st century. We've known for decades that all callers are different. They buy for different reasons, and they need to be sold differently. SATMAP allows the business to instantaneously match that caller and its unique needs with that one specific agent that has the highest probability of building trust, resonating, and closing the deal. What makes SATMAP the next generation of call routing technology? Well, Big Brother has been watching. He's been watching for over 15 years, and like it or not, there's about 100 pieces of data on each one of us that float in cyberspace. SATMAP works with the 4 data warehouses that subscribe and collect and manufacture this data. They blend it into one huge database. And when a caller comes in, they look at that caller, they run it past this huge database, and they match it up with the person in their res center that is closest in personality and buying type to the person on the other side. Now let me show you exactly what I mean. As I said, there's potentially 100 items that SATMAP can know about us. In fact, on average, it comes out to about 47. Your call comes into a call center, it looks at your number, and it identifies all of these items here plus about 60 more. It then turns around to the agents, which it has all 100 data items, and it creates a match, just like eHarmony does. By the way, eHarmony uses less than 12 data points. SATMAP can use up to 100 with an average of 47. Okay, let me give you a perfect example. Look at this fellow here on the left. He's unique. He's a hybrid between a Type A driver and a high-energy expressive. He calls the fellow on the right, who happens to work in a hotel reservation center. Instead of just giving this guy the location and the dates and the number of rooms he wants, he begins to regale this fellow at about 600 words per minute about every single one of his brand hotels that he's worked for, that he's been in the business for 25 years, that he's trained pretty much every single man, woman, and child in the lodging industry. In about 4 minutes, this good old boy with the phone in the air from Alabama is in audio burnout. High probability that this reservation will never get made. But under the new system, when Don calls into a reservation system, he's handed over to a fella who is ready to take the high-energy expressives from New York that call. He loves to hear about Don's exploits as he finds him the right room in the right location. Don likes him. He's resonating. He's not tuned him out. The reservation's been made. Business goes up, and the guy or gal running that call center is as happy as can be. So it's pretty impressive how this system works, but the key is, does it in fact work? Well, right now there's over 20,000 agents who work for 20 different companies who operate call centers, to include 3 of the top 5 lodging chains in America that use SATMAP. Now here's what we know by working with them for over 2 years. Revenue, sales, from inbound calls increases 15% the moment the system is hooked up. When you have more time and you can perfectly match up outbound calls with the person who's going to receive the call, revenue from those calls goes up by 22%. This is extremely important to people who are using this system, like credit card companies and accounts receivable to collect money. Revenue, or increased sales is not the only metric that gets people who run call centers excited. As you'll remember, talk time is a big deal for them. When SATMAP is plugged in, it literally cuts talk time on average by 7% immediately. Now let me give you an example. Walgreens has a huge call center. People call in for all kinds of things, customer service, pharmaceuticals, etc. The average call lasts 330 seconds. One of the things that they're struggling with is that every time they add a second to their average talk time, it adds $104,000 to their overall P&L for the call center. SATMAP came in and they cut the average call by 23 seconds. That saved Walgreens $2,392,000. One of the great side benefits of SATMAP is that there's absolutely no training involved of either supervisors or agents. The installation happens behind the scenes. Most times they're unaware of it, except we are asking them to fill out brief questionnaires during lunch and breaks so that we can, in fact, get those 100 data points on them. This data works wonders for the call centers. Let me give you an example. We worked with a large credit card issuer out of New York City. About 27% of their cardholders are behind 30 days or more on payment. So they have to call them and coax them to not only promise to pay, but in fact write that check. Now, one of the things that SATMAP was able to tell them was because of the data that they had collected from the agents, they suddenly saw that those agents who had previously had credit problems themselves, who were behind on credit payments in the past, became extraordinarily successful at getting people to send in money. They had empathy. From that day forward, that large bank stopped hiring stellar employees and started looking for people with shaky credit backgrounds. And when they did, collections went through the roof. One of the other side benefits is frequently the worst agent becomes a top producer. The worst agent, you won't be surprised to learn, is quirky. Doesn't really mesh with most people. But suddenly SATMAP is sending them other quirky people. Quirky likes quirky. And now they're hitting home runs out of the park and earning their first bonus checks in years. The statistics and success stories of SATMAP are impressive, but at some point the question has to be asked, how do we really know this thing is working? Well, it's a 21st century solution, but the methodology for measuring it is 20th century, 1955 to be exact. We unplug the thing. Once we've installed it with a client, we'll unplug it during the odd hours one day, maybe the even hours the next. Soon as we're finished measuring it, we walk up to them and say, here's how we performed when the system was plugged in, and here's how we performed when the system was unplugged. Are you satisfied so far? JP Morgan Chase looked at their data, and the first thing that they noticed is when the system was plugged in, they were booking $123,000 more in business than when the system was unplugged. Another method that we use is to do split groups. A group of 50 agents will be on SATMAP and a group of 50 agents will be off SATMAP. We can run it for an hour, a day, a week, or a month. That's up to the client. Then we switch and the client gets to see the results. So, who owns SATMAP? It's a Washington, D.C. based company called the Resource Group. They're one of the few companies in the world that understands how to take psychographics and apply it to a call center format. They're the only people right now that have a proprietary software. They're a $240 million a year company, and over the last 3 abysmal years, they've grown at a 40% clip. They got 6,000 employees worldwide. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see the 2 websites for the company. Take some time today to look at this and not only learn about SATMAP, but learn about the parent company and the other products of the Resource Group. Who's using SATMAP or who's about to install SATMAP? Well, in the presentation, I talked a little bit about JP Morgan Chase, Walgreens, and a few others. Now, these are just some names I literally cut and paste right off the pipeline. These are companies that are about to install or are using the product right now. From 60,000 feet, we've got over 20,000 agents who work for 20 different companies who manage call centers hooked up to SATMAP. Now that means 3 of the top 5 telecommunications and financial service companies are using it, 5 of the top 6 insurance companies, and 3 of the top hospitality companies are all hooked up and working SATMAP. Once the client agrees to install, it takes us less than 30 days. The agents, the supervisors, they're not required to be involved. In fact, they'll probably be clueless other than the fact that we're having them fill out questionnaires. A few members from either IT or the telephone department may be involved, but combined, their total investment of time should be no more than 80 hours. In short, there's really going to be no interruption or no slowdown of business as usual at the call center. So what does SATMAP cost? Well, this is Fresh Revenues. We don't promote a product or service that involves any kind of major capital outlay for our clients to take advantage of it. SATMAP's a perfect fit. What they will do is sit down with your client. They'll look at the next 12 months, and they'll determine some optimistic sales goals. They don't charge anything until those goals are met. Once those goals are exceeded, they agree on a commission system. Now, SATMAP does have another plan, which is a $300 per seat per month licensing fee. The majority of clients who come into SATMAP do not come in with that plan. They come in on the commission plan. It costs them nothing up front. I can also tell you that the majority of clients who've been with SATMAP for over a year opt to go to the $300 seat plan. Why? Well, frankly, it's more affordable because SATMAP works, and it works really well. SATMAP has a 100% satisfaction guarantee. There's an initial free trial period with all of our clients. If your client's not happy with the service or results, no problem. We shake their hands, we come get the equipment, and then we reimburse them for their estimated expenses, what it probably costs them to divert a couple of employees to help with the installation. So why SATMAP? Well, it's just like some of the other products we promote at Fresh Revenue. Why not? You'd be crazy not to try it out. It has an instantaneous increase in revenue. It's got an instantaneous decrease in talk time. Everything's guaranteed, and their client list is a who's who of call center managers. So how can you get started? It's just like all the other Fresh Revenue products and services. We ask you to identify the prospect, to determine that they have 200 seats. Inbound, outbound, it doesn't matter. Email me or call me with the name of the company, and within 24 hours, I'll let you know whether or not someone from the SATMAP network has already contacted them or is servicing them. If not, bingo, we'll issue you a hunting license. We'd like you to make that appointment for us up front, but if not, we'd also like you then to at least tell the client, hey, you'd be crazy when SATMAP calls not to set aside 20 minutes to see if they can help you drive sales or cut talk time. We'd also like to invite you to be in on that first call. Because as technologically advanced the SATMAP is, what we're doing is harnessing trust. And when you're on that first call, it's going to help us establish trust with your client. It's well worth your time because the commission is unbelievable. If you think SATMAP is of interest, all I ask you to do is look at your Rolodex, look at your contacts. Do you know anyone who either has worked for a company or serviced a company or has a friend at a company that uses some kind of call center technology? I also promise you that I'll get back to you in 24 hours with that hunting license. And if that deal closes, you will be receiving a series of very lucrative commission checks. I promise you, SATMAP is going to be a great service for Fresh Revenues, and it's going to drive a lot of money to a lot of us for a long time. Thanks for looking at this presentation today. I really appreciate it.